Welcome on board Europe's newest international express train, bringing Scandinavia closer to the rest of Europe. Launched just a couple of weeks ago, this 12-hour daytime express train is run by Swedish Snälltåget, with their cozy old-school carriages and their famous dining car, serving up some great food along the journey. So join me for this full 12-hour experience from Hamburg to Stockholm on the very first northbound journey of this new service. Hello, here from Hamburg main station or Hauptbahnhof in Germany. Today we're catching a very exciting new train service, Snälltåget's day service up to Stockholm, and I'm booked on the very first one heading north. So it should make for an exciting 11.5 hours today, so let's get going. Our journey today starts here from the beautiful Hamburg Hauptbahnhof or main station. It's a historic station dating back to 1906. And today it's become Germany's busiest train station, serving over 500,000 passengers a day. Unfortunately, this also in my experience means that the station often gets very crowded, as there really isn't a simple way to expand the historic station. But today it was actually the least busiest I've seen it in a while. And while you're here at the station, make sure to head up next to the McDonald's to find this amazing view of the train station. I mean, the view up here is just fantastic. As a train enthusiast, I could spend hours, but we have a Snälltåget to catch in around half an hour, so let's head back down towards the platforms. The station is well connected to the city, thanks to its two completely separate metro stations, called Main Station North and South respectively. It's also easy to get around by the S-Bahn network, which departs from the main hall, alongside many regional trains. Many of which are these yellow double-decker trains from Metronome, which at least to me is synonymous with Hamburg, even though they also operate a lot of trains across Lower Saxony and to Bremen. But of course, it's not just regional trains. There are also plenty of long-distance ones, including high-speed ICE services to all over Germany, with some services even extending into neighboring Austria and Switzerland. And speaking of Switzerland, here comes the night jet from Zurich. Pretty cool that you can go from Zurich to Stockholm in less than 24 hours with just one change. Hamburg truly is the gateway between Scandinavia and the rest of Europe. So let's head up to Stockholm, except we got some problems this morning.
Information on IC300 to Stockholm via Padborg, departure 9:51 AM. Delay today by about 30 minutes.
Right, so they have just announced a 30-minute delay for our Snälltåget up to Stockholm. Not a great start this morning. I'm guessing they have a technical issue or something that's causing a delay so far, but we'll see when the train shows up then. Honestly, it was not a great day for train travel towards Denmark. The 9 AM Eurocity Express to Copenhagen was replaced by a rake of old IC1 carriages, probably because a Talgo had failed. And the following 11 AM departure was completely cancelled. I guess you can try and make a guess as to why. Anyway, what I'm getting at is that with DSB, you're currently battling unreliable rolling stock and the horrible state of German infrastructure, where at least with Snälltåget this morning, we are only battling German infrastructure, as our train is stuck in a signal failure, preventing it from coming from the depot into the main station. So, in the meantime, I went to the middle of the platform, where Snälltåget was handing out free coffee to celebrate the launch of their new train service. Well, at least we got a little coffee and a chocolate while we wait for the Germans to fix their signals. And eventually, with a delay of around 1 hour, our train finally pulls in to Hamburg Hauptbahnhof. Our train today is made up of 5 carriages, one of which is their famous dining car Krogen. Pulling our train today will be this Siemens Vectron locomotive, which is capable of 200 km per hour. Right, let's head on board and find our seat. Snälltåget's fleet mostly consists of older second-hand carriages from the likes of Deutsche Bahn, but they have refurbished these nicely. And this is the carriage we'll be spending the next 12 hours in. My seat today is number 45, one of the few solo seats. Right, finally on board. We are well over an hour late now, but hopefully we get going soon and we can make up some time. It's 11.5 hours to Stockholm, so a long day is still ahead of us. We pull out of Hamburg Hauptbahnhof at 11:02, running around 70 minutes late. I should also mention, now that we depart Hamburg, that my train carriage was actually surprisingly busy. which was because Snälltåget was kind enough to accept those passengers with DSB and Deutsche Bahn tickets for their cancelled train to Copenhagen, leaving just before 11 am. Way to go, Snälltåget, for taking care of those passengers who would otherwise have to wait another 2 hours for the next train. Anyway, after a slow progress out of Hamburg due to more infrastructure problems, we are now finally getting up to speed. So, let's take a closer look at the route map for today's journey. We are on board train 306, which leaves daily from Hamburg heading north towards Jutland before heading east towards Copenhagen, then across into Sweden, where we'll spend much of the evening heading north to Stockholm. Journey time is scheduled to be 11 hours and 26 minutes, covering 1,167 kilometers, giving the train an average speed of 102 kilometers per hour. Right, let's take a closer look at the seats we'll be spending the next many hours in. They come with a slightly winged soft headrest, with the back of the seat having a simple but supportive ergonomic design, which, in combination with a good amount of padding in the base, made it rather comfortable. By no means the best seat out there, but overall it's good. It also comes with a large and sturdy tray table, and the legroom is pretty good. You'll also find a small storage pocket, which featured Snälltåget's magazine. Below the seat you'll find a power outlet, as well as the seat's recline button, making the seat a bit more comfortable for relaxing. And of course, there's also a Scandinavian-style individual bin bag. Despite these carriages being built in the 1970s, they were extensively overhauled in 2017 for Snälltåget, giving them a lot of cozy wood paneling with warm colors, and today they feel a lot like an old Swedish cabin, at least if you ask me. I'm a fan. Unfortunately, as we make our first stop in Neumünster, it would seem that we are stuck behind a late-running regional train, but at least we are now coming up on one of the coolest landmarks of the journey. We are now high up on the impressive Rendsburger Hochbrücke, taking us over the Kiel Canal. The bridge was made so high so ships could pass below it uninterrupted. However, this meant constructing this giant loop for trains to be able to actually climb up this high and still serve Rendsburg. It is really a cool sight and an impressive piece of engineering. After the bridge, our journey continues up towards Flensburg and the border with Denmark. And here things got very weird, as for some reason our train was routed through Flensburg station instead of just taking the bypass like trains normally do. And here we are, welcome to Denmark, where we pull into the border station at Padborg with a delay of around 80 minutes, thanks to being stuck behind the regional train and our little Flensburg detour. Right, here we are, welcome to Denmark. We are here in Padborg, where the police will just do a brief border check thing, and our Vectron locomotive here has to switch over to the Danish signaling system and electrification system. It's different to the German one. Takes a few minutes, but hopefully we'll get going again soon, as we're still around 70-80 minutes late. Well, spoiler, we didn't, because of course the temporary passport checks here, which recently celebrated 10 years of being a temporary thing, as usual was nothing but a gigantic waste of police resources and everyone's time. It is so pointless. The police always just walks through the train, checks 3 random passports, usually the ones who look like they're not from Europe, and statistically we are wasting the police and everybody else's time over 99.9% of the time. Anyway, while we wait for the checks to be completed, this DSB Talgo train pulled up next to us. Presumably it's the cancelled 11 am departure from Hamburg, running empty back to the workshop in Copenhagen. In the end, we end up departing Padborg with 15 minutes of additional delay, thanks to the border checks and this IC3 blocking the short segment of single-track railway ahead of us, which is actually the only piece of single track anywhere between Hamburg and Stockholm on today's route. We quickly get back up to speed, with our driver doing his very best to make up some of the delay. I think an on-time arrival into Stockholm today has already been made impossible, which is a shame given none of the delays so far have actually had anything to do with Snälltåget. Right, we're now in Denmark, rushing up towards Krogen and Copenhagen, running still around 90 minutes late. We'll see how much time we can make up, as the railways in Denmark are quite congested, but for now, let's take a closer look around the rest of the train. Today our train features 4 of these second-class carriages in a 2+2 layout, mostly with airline-style seating, but there are also a few around the table, as well as just 3 of these true solo seats. Throughout the train there's also a few luggage stacks close to the doors, and while a lot of the toilets were out of use, I did manage to find a working one. This was in pretty good condition, well stocked with both towels and toilet paper, as well as working water. I will note that the flush button for the toilet itself was in a very interesting position, but everything was working, so thumbs up. But the best feature on board has to be the dining car called Krogen. It offers an extensive takeaway section with plenty of snacks, sandwiches and beverages to take back to your seat, but also a proper sit-down restaurant serving up full-scale meals. I'll be back here later for my dinner reservation, so for now I grabbed a pastry and coffee, which was complimentary today to celebrate the launch of the new train service. Well, who can say no to a free muffin? Cheers, Snälltåget. That's pretty good. By the way, what would you call this? It's basically a cinnamon bun, but in the shape of a muffin. Next up, our train calls in Kolding. From here in the summer months, Snälltåget actually runs their own connecting bus to Legoland, around 45 minutes away. And in general, Snälltåget's model seems to be very focused on leisure travelers wanting to catch the train, which I also think is the primary target market for this connection, especially from many of the medium-sized cities along the route, like here in Odense or some of the similar ones over in Sweden, as those are often quite far from a major airport and only served by expensive regional flights that require time-consuming layovers, making even a slower direct train like this pretty convenient and competitive, especially for leisure travelers. Next, our train crosses over the impressive Great Belt fixed link, starting with the shared rail and road bridge on the western part. Then on the island of Sprogø, the two split, with cars taking the impressive eastern bridge while the train line was built into a tunnel, as both the gradient required and the exposure up on the high eastern bridge was deemed too excessive, especially for the many freight trains that use this connection. And just like that, we completed the 18-kilometer long crossing of the Great Belt, now speeding across the island of Zealand towards Denmark's capital Copenhagen, where we stop at the new platforms at Copenhagen South station, which are located on the bypass line avoiding Copenhagen main station, saving us around half an hour. And after passing Snälltåget's first southbound train to Hamburg, it's time for us to cross over the Øresund to Sweden. Our train first enters the Draugen tunnel, taking us underneath the busy shipping lanes of the Øresund. A few minutes later, we emerge on the artificial island of Peberholm, before joining the Øresund bridge itself. We cross the border into Sweden right here on the bridge, and eventually arrive in mainland Sweden after completing the 16-kilometer long crossing. Now our train will snake its way to Malmö Central Station, taking the ring line that leads our train into the high-level platforms. Right, here we are. Welcome to Malmö here in Sweden. We have a brief stop here while we change direction and get some more carriages added, so let's go check that out. Here we say bye to this Vectron locomotive that has hauled us since Hamburg, as now at the other end of the train we will get an additional carriage added alongside a different Vectron locomotive. Also, just a day after this video goes live, Snälltåget is actually launching a brand new train service from here in Malmö up to Oslo in Norway on July 15th. Right, that's the shunting maneuver complete, and we have an extra carriage and a new Vectron locomotive ready to pull us up to Stockholm. We're still well over an hour late, so we'll see how much time we make up for the final 4-5 hours up to Stockholm. Let's get back on board so we don't delay this train. And just before we departed Malmö, I spotted Snälltåget's train to Stockholm that was meant to depart an hour after us. But because of our delay, we ended up departing right in front of it, which caused a lot of problems once we got to our next stop in Lund. People started getting on board our train thinking it was the train just behind us, and thus very understandably being very confused when their reserved seats were occupied. So on this ride, a lot of people ended up having to stand to the next station stop, then get off the train and onto the right one right behind us.
Those traveling with 3942, which has departure time at 5:41, please stay put on the platform. They will come right behind us. This is train 306, not 3942. Thank you very much.
And now, as the clock approaches 18:30, I'm off to the dining car, as that's when I've reserved the table for, which is highly recommended to do, as the dining car often is very busy around dinner time. If you're traveling solo or as a couple, you'll most likely be seated with other train passengers. Today I decided to try a Swedish classic, the meatballs with mashed potatoes and lingonberry sauce, and I could not resist trying out the mango passion cheesecake too. Snälltåget also has its own beer, and overall this was a great meal for 300 Swedish kronor. I actually ended up spending most of the evening in the dining car, chatting and enjoying a couple more beers with the other passengers I got randomly sat with, which turned out to be a great way to pass time on such a long train journey.
Man, that was a good dining car experience. Not only was the food really good, it was also pretty good value, especially for Sweden. And it's communal seating, and I ended up being sat next to some lovely people where I had a good talk, probably for 2 or 3 hours and a few more beers than I would like to admit. But we're almost in Stockholm now, around 30 to 40 minutes to go, just one more stop into the Snälltåget, and I'm heading back to my seat now. Hopefully my bag is still there. So far, it's been a great journey, but it's also been a long one.
Back at my seat, everything was still in order, and now there's not much really else to talk about as we complete the final kilometers into Stockholm. I should mention there is free Wi-Fi on board the train, but it did not work for me at all. And now, as we begin our approach into Stockholm, let's talk about ticket prices. I paid 499 Swedish kronor for this journey around a month in advance, and I thought this was good value for 12 hours on board a comfortable train. Overall, Snälltåget is a great train operator. They are cheap, fun and friendly, and a great option for your next train holiday. And if you prefer not to spend 12 hours of your day to get to Hamburg, they also run a night train many days of the week on this route. In the end, our train pulls into Stockholm Central Station at 22:51 with a final delay of 94 minutes after what's been a long but overall okay journey. Thank you so much for joining me in this video. Make sure to subscribe if you enjoyed it, as I try to post a new one every Sunday. You can also become a channel member for just a couple of euros a month to get exclusive travel updates and early access to all my videos. And if you're curious about the new Malmö to Oslo route, why not check out my video taking the V train on the same route, which launched last summer. Thanks for watching.